Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Divine, and in today's video I am going to be sharing my testimony, my story on how God delivered me and healed me from depression. Okay, first of all, I just want to say if you see me looking down, it's because I have notes and I need to make sure I remember to say all the important stuff, so I'll be looking down once in a while. And yeah, I think that's it. I just don't want to waste any time. I've already tried to do this so many times. The devil's really trying me and trying to make sure I don't film this video. But guess what, devil? You lost once. You're going to lose again and you'll keep losing. Okay, next. By the way, guys, I am just a joyful person. I smile a lot. So don't look at it weird when I'm like talking about difficult things while kind of smiling. It's kind of a coping mechanism as well. I don't know, but also, you know, why can't I smile? Why can't I be joyful, right? The Lord has already delivered me. All this is in the past. I'm just here to share my story. And to hopefully plant a seed in someone's heart, right? To plant a seed in somebody out there whom I ran into this video. Because I remember I would go on YouTube, I would go online, looking for videos, looking for anything, right? I would type in my feelings. I'm like, I feel like this is the pain I feel. Hoping that someone could relate to me. I found nothing, okay? And so that is why I'm making this video, to hopefully give somebody out there hope, who feels like nobody understands, who feels like they're alone, who feels like there's no hope for the future. I am proof that there is hope. I am proof that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I know that's a cliche, like, thing that people say, oh, there's light at the end of the tunnel. But it's true. It's true. There really is. And you just have to believe and have faith that it's going to be there. If anyone out there is dealing with depression or anything in that family, under that umbrella, I just want you to have some hope, okay? And know that God is there for you and he sees you and that he has a plan for you. Because just like the Israelites, when they were in Egypt, guess what? God knew what the things that they were going through and he had a plan to set them free. And guess who that plan was? Moses. And yes, it was a whole process, but guess what? They made it out eventually. I was depressed for about 8 years, right? From the age of 13 to 20. I just turned 21 in September. And I would say I've been depression free for about a year. It's a funny story how I even realized I was depressed, honestly. Or not depressed. How I realized I wasn't depressed. I wouldn't say there's like a specific point where you're like, oh, I'm not depressed anymore. No. Just like how you faded into depression, you fade out of it too. But anyway, let me just get right into the story. So here's the backstory to how I got into depression, right? Growing up, I was bullied. I was picked on, right? I grew up feeling rejected, honestly, by the world, by people. I grew up feeling misunderstood. That all developed into feelings of loneliness, brokenness. I developed low self-esteem. I just felt unlovable. And it also ended up leading to me developing people-pleasing mentalities as I grew older, because I was craving to be accepted, right? I was craving that so much. That's how I grew up. That's kind of like how I was up until the point where I got depressed when I was 13. But all that stuff, honestly, it did a number on me. It did a number on how I see myself, on how I see the world, on how I perceive other people and how I feel like they perceive me, you know? But I feel like what didn't lead me to become depressed at a young age, I don't know why I'm doing quotations for depressed, but I feel like the reason why I didn't get depressed at an earlier age or fell into that kind of like sadness, depression, whatever at a young age is because I was a kid. I was a bubbly kid. And at that point, I was allowed to be a kid. I would be out riding bikes. I taught myself how to ride a bike because I didn't want to sit still. I wasn't that kid that sat still. Yes, it was probably my ADHD symptoms coming through at such a young age, but I was a kid. I like to have fun. I like to play around. But unfortunately, growing up, I grew up with a lot of titles being attached to me, like, oh, you're the troublemaker kid, or like so many things. Even till this day, if I ask my family or anybody that I knew when I was younger, they remember the terms, the names I would get called. Not like bad names, but you know, titles. So I grew up bullied, picked on, didn't have many friends. I always felt like I had to earn people's friendship. I had to earn people's anything for them to care about me. Cue the people-pleasing behaviors. And what's crazy is that the people that taught me people-pleasing behaviors were adults. Because the only times adults seemed like they were okay with me or liked me, and they didn't call me all these different titles or names or see me as like a kid who is a troublemaker or a menace or whatever. And mind you, I was a good kid. I just was a kid. But anyway, the only times they didn't do all that was when I did something for them. So they'd be like, hey, Divine, can you go do this for me? Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, go do that for me. Oh, yeah. Like, little chores. I lived in Africa. That's where I'm from. I'm Congolese. But I was born in Congo, grew up in Uganda for a little bit, came to the US when I was 9. So specifically in Africa, like growing up, like all the people in the neighborhood would just be like, oh, Divine, can you go get this for me? Oh, and I'll be like, okay, yeah. Even kids, like the only time they would try and talk to me or be my friend, although they just bullied me yesterday and chased me home, was when I had snacks or when I had something. And then suddenly they want to be my friends. So imagine growing up like that, being bullied, and then the next day they're your friends, and then they bully you, and then, okay, yeah. So moving on to 2018, that's when everything went down, right? That's when I fell into depression heavily because my family fell apart. At least to me it did. I don't know how other people would perceive it, but to me it fell apart because my parents separated. Everything was crazy. And I'm part of an African household, so things are already crazy just because of that. But the fact that my parents separated made it even more crazier. And then I was 13. So here I am with my mom and my siblings trying to figure things out on our own. And it was just tough. It was really tough. And so I fell into a depression. Honestly, I feel like what caused the depression was just like, it was too much. I had already been going through things when like growing up. And I feel like my parents separating was like the cherry on top to all the things that I experienced, okay? And for me, my home, my family was my safe space. Because the world treated me a certain way, right? I even took that mentality and put it into my family. So I would always often feel like the black sheep. Same people pleasing mentalities, honestly. Like, I always felt like my family needed me when it was time to like fix something, because I'm good at fixing stuff or putting things together. I love putting things together or looking for something. That's when they would like celebrate me and hype me up. But all the other times, I was just a troublemaker kid. But anyway, regardless, it's my family. They're the only people I've known my entire life. And my parents, of course, they gave birth to me. And so the fact that my parents separated and my family kind of felt like it was falling apart, that was just the cherry on top, and everything just came crashing down. And when I say cherry on top, I don't mean in a good way. I just mean like the mountain was already packed. It's like the bag is already too heavy and you just add that one thing and all the straps, everything, the bag falls apart. That was me. That was like the one last thing, my 13th reason, actually. There we go. It was my 13th reason. I was like, I couldn't do it. And I was a kid. And so that catapulted me into a deep depression. I started having suicidal thoughts. Later on, I became hopeless. I became helpless. I started relying on external validation, external acceptance, external anything to keep me going, because internally I was just surviving. I feel like I tapped into survival mode. I was no longer living. And it's crazy because I feel like also like the places we're living at that time, the neighborhood and stuff we've lived at has changed. So when I was younger, when we first came to the US, I lived in a neighborhood where I could just play around with the kids and all that, but we moved. And then we moved again into the house we are now. And it's just like a quiet neighborhood. Nobody's outside, nobody's playing, nothing. And so as I grew up, I couldn't even be myself anymore. Everything just about me just died, low-key, just got buried. And it was really, really tough. It was really, really dark times. Sometimes I try to think back and I'm just like, you know what, God, thank you so much. Because I remember the pain I would feel. And, back in the day, I wouldn't really know what exactly caused me to be depressed. Like I said at the beginning, fade into depression, you fade out of it. But I feel like just the heartbreak of being abandoned by my own father, of just my safe space falling apart. I just couldn't handle it. And I think that's just what did it for me. But anyway, I became suicidal. Not in like a dangerous way, honestly, because at that time, I knew who God was. Like I've always kind of gravitated towards God from such a young age. And so during that time, like I knew who God was. But from that time, like I kind of had this understanding, and I still have that understanding to this day, that offing yourself isn't God's will for us. And it's low-key murder. I just had this certain fear of the Lord in me that I was like, you know what, I can't do that. And so it only ever stayed up in here, in my mind. And It's crazy because nobody knew what I was going through. My mom kind of noticed because, like I said, I'm a yapper, and during that year when I first became depressed, she noticed that like I just was quiet. And it's true because I literally come from wherever I've come from to my room, turn the lights off, just cry. That's it. And honestly, like I feel like throughout the 8 years, I got to a point where I grew numb to the pain because I had been used to it for such a long time. I learned how to live with it. You know, I'll put on this like happy exterior, like when I would go out or whatever, talk to people, and then when I'm by myself, I'm sad. Anyway, I was really hopeless. I remember nights where I would cry to God, be like, God, please take this away from me. I want to feel better. I don't want to be depressed anymore. I don't want to feel this pain. And, you know, I had faith, but I didn't really have hope. Like, I had faith that God could do it, but I also feel like a part of me viewed God like some sort of magician. See, I was like young in the faith, honestly. I have a much better understanding of God now. But back then, I feel like in my mind, I kind of had like my understanding of like, I guess deliverance or a miracle was like, you know, I ask God for it and bam, I go to sleep, wake up, and I'm good. But what's crazy is that after being depressed for so long, I got to a point where I couldn't even remember my old version. Like my old version low-key died. I couldn't remember life without being depressed. I had been depressed for that long. My relationship with God, I just want to talk about that for just a second. So I don't know if it's because of how I felt like I was perceived by people, or like growing up how I felt rejected and all that stuff. I took that, or like, for example, how I said that I took how the world viewed me and put it on my family, and I felt like the black sheep. I felt like the way everybody else viewed me is how my family viewed me. And maybe, I mean, they're African, so probably, maybe. I know they all saw me as a little troublemaker kid who didn't like sitting still. But like I said, that's probably just ADHD showing up. But anyway, I took that same idea of like, people don't like me, I'm unlovable, wada, etc. I'm a problem, something's wrong with me because everybody seems to have a problem with me, but like I'm literally a child. I'm a chill kid. And I took that and put it on God, right? And so I remember during this time specifically, the first few years of being depressed, like, and of course it's probably because, like I said, I was young in the faith. I got baptized when I was 10. Just like I said, because I've always naturally gravitated towards God. So at that time, I didn't really know him that much. I really didn't. And so hence why I kind of low-key viewed him as a magician to just kind of do that and bam, it's done. But unfortunately, that's not reality. Actually, not unfortunately. Fortunately, that's not reality because what the heck? We like God the way he is. Anyway, let me not get off track. Not only am I a yapper, I'm a jokester, guys. Okay, please bear with me. But I often felt far from God. I often felt like he was annoyed with me. Like he's probably up in heaven, like looking down on me, like, ugh, look at that little girl. So annoying. Like literally, that's how I felt like God saw me, like viewed me, like how other people view me, you know. And that's why like being picked on and all that stuff, or even adults, like you need to be careful how you treat children and the things you say to them or whatever, because that stuff sticks to them. It sticks to them and it kind of becomes part of the identity and how they perceive themselves and how they think the world perceives them. So I thought God perceived me the same way other people did. I often felt very far from him. Even when I would ask him to take my depression away, I often felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt like I was asking too much. I felt like I was like, God, please just do this one thing for me. Please, I beg you. Like that's how it would often feel. But anyway, my relationship with God has evolved so much, honestly. And part of the reason it evolved is because I got delivered from depression. Because honestly, the process, okay, we're about to get to the good stuff. I prayed about this for God to give me understanding to really analyze the past 8 years or whatever, to figure out like, okay, how did I get to this point of not being depressed anymore? Because like I said in the beginning, you fade into depression, you fade out. I literally had to just like sit and figure out, okay, Divine, when did you stop being depressed? Like what do you think caused all this? And so that's kind of the notes I have. It's kind of like a timeline. I feel like this is like the summary version, you know. This is kind of like the process that led to me being delivered. But yeah, me and God, we weren't that close. But like I said, growing up feeling like a problem, like I was unlovable, whatever, I often felt broken. I always felt like there was something wrong with me, you know, because that's the only reason people would dislike me. Like, I'm not even like a bad person. I'm pretty chill. And so there was probably some kind of discrepancies in my mind of the fact that I'm like this, yet people treat me like this. When you're innocent, yet you're being treated like a criminal, or like, you know, those types of situations where it's like your essence and personality do not match what people are labeling you as. And growing up, the way people treated me didn't match me. And so that also kind of messed up how I viewed certain types of behavior. Because I got to a point where I was like, oh yeah, I deserve it. I literally got brainwashed to see myself as a bad person when I wasn't. And that brainwash led me to see God as someone who sees me as a bad person, or someone that he's annoyed with, or whatever. 2021 is the year that I've kind of narrowed down that, like, this is the year things started shifting. I think it's 2021 because I remember in 2021, I started seeing a therapist. First of all, it didn't work. I would just yap and yap and yap. She would listen, take a few notes, and then diagnose me. Oh yeah, you have depression and anxiety. That's another thing I forgot. When my parents separated, when all that went down and I became depressed, I also became anxious. I became very fearful. Very, very fearful. Okay? All my deepest fears came out. Fears that I would never be loved, fears that no one would ever like me, fears that I'm not enough. All of these different fears suddenly came to the surface, and he's still pruning that out of me. Because, I mean, fear, I feel like it's something that a lot of us experience anyway. But therapy didn't work. And 2021 was kind of the year that I experienced like endurance. I don't know, I not just experienced endurance. I kind of became more aware of myself in a manner of like, I can endure. Because I started junior year, and every grade level starting from like 9th to 12th grade has a certain trip they go on. And so the juniors go to the Southwest. I never hiked, like legitimately hiked. Actually, I had hiked. Yeah, I had. But not to that extent. Okay, not to that extent. That trip really, really pushed me. And I feel like by it pushing me, it unlocked a certain level of my brain. And I suddenly became more aware of myself, of my life, of life in general. I just became more aware. Okay, it's like, is his name Neo from The Matrix? How he like suddenly starts becoming aware and noticing certain things, and then eventually they pull him out. That was me. Like throughout my life, there's been points where I've just become more aware. Like my eyes just open and they open. And 2021, that trip was one of them. But between 2021 and 2024 is when the transformation really happened for me. How? Well, I became an introspective person. I wouldn't say I was trying to like heal myself. It was more so I was trying to understand myself. I don't know how I got to that point, but I just started trying to understand myself, and I just started to think deeply about life, about God, about all. I just started to become a deep thinker, okay? And during that time was kind of the time I also started letting go of a lot of relationships, because in my heart, I knew I had this desire for the type of friend, type of people I wanted in my life, you know, the type of friend I wanted. And so, and that stems from the fact that I grew up literally feeling lonely and feeling like I had to earn people's care and love, or for them to be my friend. And so during that time, between 2021 and like 2024, I kind of like detached from a lot of people. Some of the ways that I viewed life kind of changed. I grew a lot, actually. I was depressed, but I grew. Okay, I had grown numb to being depressed. It was a way of life. Like, me not being depressed was like me not being myself. It had become my identity, right? And honestly, I feel like God is the one that was doing this, allowing certain people to just fall off me, or for me to just detach from people. Things didn't really change like that until 2024. 2024 was the year I was forced to really detach. Because although I had detached from some people, there were still other people that I was still detached to. And detached to out of fear, attached to out of fear that maybe I would never have another friend. Probably because like I'd gotten so used. You know when you've gotten so used to someone being in your life or someone being your friend, it's so hard to let them go because it's been years, yeah. And so one of my closest friends at the time, I had to detach, and it was really, really hard. It was really, really hard. But we both knew like we're both struggling with our own things. Something has to give, and it gave. And honestly, it was challenging. Mostly, like I said, because when you're so used to having somebody in your life, it's hard for them not to be there anymore. But that year, 2024, when all of that went down, I really got to a point, specifically in December, as the year came to a close. And this is honestly the height of my testimony as a whole. Hi guys, sorry, I had to move. It's really hard to find a nice quiet space to record on a college campus. So, you know what? Good thing is I found a replacement. Okay, so back to what I was saying, right? I personally believe that 2021 to 2024 were the years that I was being delivered. If that makes sense. They were preparing me for the moment that I would thoroughly be delivered. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, for example, if you look at the Israelites, right? Their deliverance was a process. It wasn't linear, like Moses came and was like, let my people go. And Pharaoh was like, okay, bet, bye. No, it was a process. And even before the process began, God told Moses that it was going to be a process. And so I truly believe that my deliverance was a process, and it's not something that came overnight. There were a lot of series of events that played a role in leading me up to the point that I would be fully delivered. It's like when your phone's charging, you don't just plug it in and bam, it's at 100. No, it takes time to charge. And I feel like that's how deliverance works. There's some deliverance, it's miraculous. You know, Jesus did a lot of miracles. And then there's some that takes time. 2024, I was honestly put in a position that I didn't even realize I was in. And I was forced to make a decision concerning how I wanted to move on with my life. Either keep chasing or turn back, right? Be like Lot's wife and look back and chase or try and reconnect or regain the relationships and connections I had with people. Or I don't know how to put it into words, honestly, guys. All of this happened in such a miraculous way, honestly. I don't even know how to put it into words. Like, even me telling the story, I keep thinking about it. I'm like, my story makes no sense, honestly. But I'm gonna tell it anyway. Testimonies don't need to make sense. God knows what he did, okay? But 2024, December, I was forced to make a decision. I didn't even realize I was forced to make a decision, but looking back, I was kind of forced to make a decision concerning how I wanted to move on with my life. And this is where James chapter 12, verse 2 comes from, right? This was kind of the verse that got me through a lot, second half of last year, 2025. And the second half of it says, may you be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Thinking back, I feel like from 2021 to 2024, my mind was getting renewed slowly and slowly and slowly. And the transformation didn't fully show until the end of 2024. Because suddenly, I got to this point, I felt done chasing people to like me, to accept me, all of these things, to understand me. I was just like, to make me feel better, to give me some kind of validation, to make me not feel broken anymore, to make me not feel lonely, whatever. Because all my life I had been chasing these things to be liked and accepted by the world, by people. And I got to a point in December where I said, you know what, it's okay. That's literally it. I said, it's fine. I fully and truthfully got to a point where I just accepted reality as it is. The world rejected me. It is what it is. It's okay. Just because the world rejected me doesn't mean I have to reject myself. Because that's the thing about bullying and getting picked on, and all these things I experienced when I was younger, they made me see myself how other people supposedly saw me, how the world supposedly saw me. And it's crazy because even Jesus himself says, think about not being dismayed, right? And to know that we can endure, because he endured and he succeeded, although the world rejected him. You know, something along those lines. I can't remember what verse it was. Maybe I'll do some YouTuber magic and put it up on the screen. But at that point, like, I was just like, you know what, I'm done chasing for external anything. I'm done. And I just accepted myself in that moment. I really did. I was like, you know what, I am enough. If you guys don't want to give it to me, fine, I'll give it to myself. And that was kind of me rejecting the fears, some of the fears I had developed in me from when I was younger. The fear of not being liked, not being cared for, of not being good enough, not being beautiful enough, not being anything enough, right? I was afraid. And that's why I would chase. And that's what kept feeding all the other things I felt. Loneliness, feeling unlovable, feeling broken, feeling misunderstood. I had been fighting those things all my life, trying to like prove myself, but I stopped. In that moment, I made the decision and said, you know what, it is what it is. I'm not doing this anymore. And I don't know when the flip switched, but it flipped. It switched. I don't know when the flip switched, but it did. And that December, I just said, you know, enough is enough. Reality is, y'all don't like me, fine. You don't have to. I'll like myself. And for the first time ever, I chose myself. Instead of, for example, if someone says, I don't like you, and then you spend the rest of your life trying to prove to them why you should be liked, or trying to earn their likeness or love or whatever. That's kind of how I was and how a lot of us are. But I got to a point where someone says, I don't like you. I'm like, okay, you don't have to, because I like myself enough for the both of us. My mind shifted in that way where it was like no longer trying to perform, trying to earn people's love and validation or anything. I kind of unsubscribed from that mentality and subscribed to the mentality of, you know what, I have God, I have myself. I might as well stop neglecting myself, right? Pay some attention to myself, because all my life I've neglected myself. All my life I've been focused on making friends, or I want more friends. I don't have a lot of friends. All my life I've been focused on all these stupid things that were adding nothing to me, right? Trying to earn people's love, trying to earn people's care, right? Trying to earn people's friendship, whatever. And I just unsubscribed from all that. I feel like that's what solidified my deliverance. I made that decision in my mind unknowingly. And that's how 2024 ended. Honestly, it ended me feeling more peaceful. I remember that time in December. I became so peaceful all of a sudden because I had finally let go. I let go of trying to prove myself. I let go so much of trying to earn anything from anybody. I let it go. I let go of the fear that, oh, nobody will like me, because I realized, if you really think about it, right? If the world calls you all these things, but you know you're not those things, all these negative things, and you know you're not all these things, like, people will get bullied. It's not because they're bad people. It's just because, well, honestly, this whole different conversation. Both people, like, I hate this saying, but it's true. Hurt people hurt people. And unfortunately, that is just how the world is. This whole conversation for another day, because I feel like both sides matter when it comes to that type of conversation about how hurt people and how now everybody's hurt. You know what I mean? I transformed after 2024. I really did. I can't explain to you in detail. It's like, because I feel like deliverance isn't something that you can plan and say, if I do this, if I do that, if I do this. And I feel like that's why going to therapy didn't really do much for me, because it needed to come from me. I had to make the decision. Because if you look at the Israelites, right, they were taken out of Egypt. They were physically delivered, but they weren't mentally delivered. They still had, like, they had been used, they had, whoa, English, I need you to come together right now, help me out. They had been enslaved for so long that they low-key forgot what it meant to be free. To the point where they got free and they got into the wilderness. First of all, they didn't even trust God, right? They didn't trust God. And anytime any sort of inconvenience came up, they were like, oh, take us back. Just take us back. Just take us back. And I think something else that aided in my deliverance was that I trusted God. I had a level of trust in God and faith in God. And he himself just kind of spiritually, miraculously led me through some of the decisions that I made leading up to that point, all the way from like way back when, you know. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, if what I'm saying is making sense. But I stopped striving to be chosen or accepted by people, by anybody else. That's basically what happened. And I accepted myself as I was. And I came to peace with a lot of the situations that had happened because I realized hurt people hurt people. And by my mindset shifting and how I thought about certain things and how I felt about certain things, it changed my perspective on life. And I feel like that just, in some way, in my mind, it shifted some wires. And I was free. Because I feel like depression is both physical, and physical as in mental and spiritual. And only God will know what exactly was going on spiritually. Mentally, the best way I can describe it is my mind renewed. I started thinking different thoughts. I was like, you know what? Why be sad about all this stuff that isn't even true? Because I know myself. I know how I am. I'm a fun person. I'm a likable person, and I'm a good person. There's nothing that makes me deserve to be treated in a bad way or in a negative way, or to be bullied or to be picked on or whatever. I didn't deserve any of that. And I feel like that's what internally, like, the pieces were being pieced together in my mind subconsciously, all these different realizations. And so 2024 ended. It honestly ended in peace after having let go of a bunch of people, let go of a bunch of situations. I could finally breathe that year. I remember the year kind of ended off with me being at peace because I had let go of so much of people, things, and I just focused on myself. I don't know, guys. I'm doing my best to really give this testimony in the way it should be given. 2025, right? It began, and honestly, I remember it being kind of peaceful. I had gotten closer to God, and so I had in a sense, but not as much as like halfway through the year. But anyway, at that point, I started acknowledging God honestly as my friend. So I guess, yes, my perception of God also started to change. Because before I perceived him as like the creator of the God, and like, you know, I was kind of legalistic, only because a lot of African churches are legalistic. And so growing up in that, it kind of makes you a little bit legalistic. But how I viewed God started changing. And, you know, at that point, since I had kind of like became at peace with a lot of things, or at least decided to become at peace with a lot of things, 2025 kind of started off with me and God, just me and him. And I would often talk to God, like God literally became my friend. I was like, you know what? You're there for me, so why not? You're there, why not? Why can't you be my friend? And that also kind of played a role, honestly, in my deliverance. I feel like because I took my attention from people and put it on God, because God loves me already. I don't have to earn anything. You know, he's the best friend you could ever have. But here's the good news. Here's the part everybody's been waiting for. As we got closer to like March, around March, was it March? Around March or April. I think it was March. My brain is telling me it's March. Around March in 2025, last year, I was literally laying on my bed watching YouTube shorts. And suddenly I realized it hit me. Literally, it hit me out of nowhere. I was like laughing, because I was watching this real funny video, of course. I was laughing, and suddenly it hit me, and I was like, oh, I'm not depressed anymore. That's literally how it happened. I was like, I'm not sad anymore. I literally had to pause my video. I started laughing hysterically out loud without the video. Because now the video wasn't funny. Now I just became joyous all of a sudden. And I started praying and I started just praising God in that moment. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you, Jesus. Like, thank God my roommate wasn't there. But yeah, literally that's how I found out. That's when I realized, oh man, I'm no longer depressed. I'm no longer depressed. Because I remember in around like 2021, 2022, 2023, I'd gotten to a point in my depression where, you know, like I said, in 2021, I kind of became more introspective. I became more of a deeper thinker, whatever. I was trying to learn more about my symptoms and whatever and try to kind of self-help. Self-help didn't work, guys. Self-help can be beneficial, but the person you truly need is God, okay? I just gotta put that out there. Because the quote-unquote self-help, like trying to dive into, like trying to understand myself, my symptoms, maybe what's wrong with me, see that mentality of what's wrong with me, I would kind of be okay. I would be okay for like a couple weeks, a few weeks. And then there'll be like 2 weeks after that I would just be sad, depressed. And then I would kind of trip up again for like a little bit. And honestly, that would just be masking. I was never truly okay. That's just as long as I could go with the mask of pretending everything was fine until it all caught up to me and I couldn't do it anymore. But depression was not fun. And so when I realized I wasn't depressed, I was so happy to the point where I was like, wait, when did this happen? Like, I couldn't even, you know, when you think of sad memories and you start to cry? I remember when I was depressed, I would listen to depressed music or whatever, sad music all the time. And that's another thing, guys. If you're depressed, do not listen to sad music. It only feeds whatever that spirit is that runs, whatever. It feeds it. It feeds the spirit of depression. It feeds it, right? Because now you have all these sad songs and the melody and everything's adding on to the feelings and the emotions. Guys, don't do it. Because I did that to myself, and I was always on the verge of falling apart, breaking down, because the songs would just feed, and I would walk around my headphones. The songs just feeding into me, feeding into my thoughts, feeding into the sadness I already felt, and making them bigger and more spontaneous and sadder. But I would try and recall like some of the times when I was really depressed and I felt nothing. Like I could remember, but it was such a memory that was far away. Even now, I feel like that's why it's also kind of hard to give this testimony, because it happened over a long period of time. And it's not like I knew it was happening. My retelling of this whole story may not have been the best. There's a lot of things I feel like I'm forgetting. And honestly, like there's certain things that if you had asked me to tell you how my depression is going, I would probably like have some really in-depth and like emotional things to say. But now that I'm healed, it doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels like past. But one thing that I thank God for the most is the fact that He renewed not just my mind, but He renewed my identity. Because I had gone to a point in those almost 8 years, I couldn't even remember the younger version of me. The divine that taught herself how to ride a bike, because my dad took too long and I was not about to beg for it, so I did it myself at 9 years old during winter break. This was like the first year we came into the US, and it was cold, freezing cold. The divine that took risks, the divine that, you know, was herself and didn't care, the divine that just lived, that just existed. Because it wasn't until I got older that I started becoming more self-conscious. But when I was younger, I was just free. And the fact that God kind of renewed my identity in a way that, yes, depression was gone, but I kind of got a little bit of my childlike essence back. And I'm so thankful for that, because I remember when I was depressed, I would try and think back to how I was when I was happy, and I couldn't even recall. And there were even times where I would be like, okay, what if I got better from depression? Like, what if one day I woke up and I wasn't depressed anymore? What then? Like, I remember I would think thoughts like that and kind of like try and figure out like, okay, how would I be? What kind of version of me, like what kind of version would I be? And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't quite understand what version of me I would be if I was no longer depressed, because depression because depression had become a part of me and my identity for so long. Anyway, guys, I am getting a little bit tired. I feel like I've been recording this video for so long. It's going to be about an hour. Fortunately, that it is what it is. I'll try and do some editing. I've never edited before, so hopefully this comes out good. But yes, that is my testimony. That is my story. I hope it made sense. I hope you guys were able to catch up with everything I had to say. But most importantly, I hope that this story, this chill, funny rendition of all the things I went through, I guess, on a more broader, because there's a lot of things I don't recall, honestly. Me getting better from depression is just, like I said, you fade into it, you fade out of it. It was just a transition that, now that I try to recall, just like how I couldn't ever imagine myself being depression-free, it's now that I'm depression-free, I can't really, that version of me that was depressed, like, she's so gone. It's only been a year, but she's so gone that I just can't even recall or imagine her anymore. She's like fading away. And that's how you know it's lovers, because the old you is dead, is dying, or I don't know. But if anything, I hope that this story time, testimony, gave hope to somebody, that the Lord can renew your joy once again. The Lord can renew your peace once again. The Lord can renew your hope once again. The Lord can renew you, period. There's nothing that he cannot do. And like James 12:2 says, may you be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So not only is deliverance spiritual, it can also be physical, as in your mind. And your thoughts, right? Negative thoughts play a role. And that's why, like, nowadays, we've gotten to a point where I'm like, negativity is like, I'm no longer attracted to negativity. I remember when I was depressed, I was so attracted to negativity all the time. Oh, negative, all the time. And there was a period of time where I was like optimistic, but it was honestly fake optimism. But now I feel like I'm like truly positive, you know? I don't associate myself with negativity in that way. I'm realistic, but not realistic to the point where I'm forcefully being negative towards myself or towards anyone else. And so keep that in mind. If anyone out there is still dealing with depression, number one, God can do anything, okay? Number two, you can endure anything. Why? Because you have God. That verse where it says, I can do all things, Philippians 4:13, a lot of us see it as I can do anything, literally, like I can do anything. But the real version, right, of that part of Philippians, the way Paul wrote it, the words he used for to do anything, like that kind of section, he was basically more so saying I can endure anything, or I can deal with anything, I can handle anything through God who strengthens me, right? And so know that you have God, you're not alone, and he sees you, he knows you, just like he saw and knew that the Israelites were being enslaved in Israel. He knows that you're going through this, and know that he has worked out a plan to deliver you. And all you need to do is have faith and have hope. Number two, know that God can renew you. And know that healing is possible. Redemption is possible. He can renew your identity. He can renew everything about you. Number three, please stop listening to sad music. Music is so powerful. The best thing you can do for yourself is to stop listening to negative music. Music that like you listen to when you're depressed and it just like feeds into your depression or your sadness. Stop doing that to yourself, please. Number 4, positivity. Positivity. There's power in the tongue, okay? You gotta speak powerful, like, you gotta speak positive things over yourself. What else? Number 5. Take your attention away from people and put it on God. Because guess what? God will always be there. David literally said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Meaning God is all you need. And when you have him, you will not desire anything. Of course, we're fallen, so when you're fallen, God is not enough. You just want sin, and God is goodness. So it's like, I want, but as a child of the Lord, once you've accepted him into your heart, he will fill the empty spaces and his light will outshine the darkness. But just do your best to keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep your eyes on God, because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. And there's nothing he cannot do. And just like he delivered the Israelites, surely he can deliver you too. And I'm not promising that any journey in life, right, either deliverance or healing from a physical injury or anything that you might ever go through in life, it's not linear. God never promised protection from hardships. Instead, he encouraged us to believe that with him we can endure and do anything. And even the apostles after that, Paul, always constantly encouraged us, told us, stay strong, right? Know that you can endure anything, all of these things. And so believe those words in your heart. Kind of goes back to being positive. Believe those words in your heart, that you can endure and that God is with you. He sees you and he knows you. But thinking about like the Israelites, I feel like one of the things that kept them in the wilderness was because they didn't trust God. And for them to go in the land that God had prepared for them, they had to be ready to leave all their traditions and cultures that they had picked up in Egypt behind, so they could be renewed into a different kind of people with a different mind that could properly serve God or accept him as their Lord and master and king or whatever. But unfortunately for the Israelites, they just kept going the other way. Shift your mind from the things that are below and put it on the things that are above, okay? And honestly, do yourself a favor and stop striving for worldly acceptance, because they rejected Jesus. The world rejected Jesus to the point where they killed him. His own people, his own chosen people rejected him and killed him. And, you know, that just goes to show the nature of this fallen humanity that exists. Like I said earlier, I feel like the moment I just stopped striving and I was like, you know what? Okay, this is my reality. Because for years, I kept trying to go against the grain, you know. Like I said earlier with the example, someone says they don't like you. So now you're trying to like perform and try to earn their love or try to earn. I was like, you know what? I'm done earning. I'm done earning. I've been trying to earn since I was a kid, under 10. How long am I gonna keep doing this? So remember that self-care is self-love. Turn your attention from people and put it on yourself. Because a lot of us put our energy into others more than we do ourselves, and then we end up neglecting ourselves and ignoring ourselves for years and years because we're putting way more effort into other people than we are ourselves. And honestly, being my own friend and learning to, you know, enjoy my own company has been the best thing ever. Because you don't want to be my friend? Fine, I'll be my own friend. Anyway, I'm getting exhausted. I feel like this video is going to be too long. I think that is all that I have to say. If anybody kept watching up to the end of this video, then thank you so much. God bless you. And I pray that the Lord shines his light upon you and your life, and that he restores you and renews you, and that he does wondrous things in your life like he has in mine. If you enjoyed this video, or if you just enjoyed me, I don't know. I personally like myself, but I would be my own friend. If I saw myself out somewhere, I'd be like, ooh, I want to be her friend. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, then I guess give it a thumbs up. I don't know what YouTubers do. I don't know. And if there's anyone you think might, need this video just to even laugh, just to have some hope, to relax, then send it to them. And I guess let me know in the comments how you're doing and how you're feeling. If you have your own little testimony, let me know. And I don't know, just talk to me in the comments, okay? I'll reply, I'll talk. We can be online besties, don't worry. But that is all that I have for today when it comes to this. I just thank God for giving me the opportunity to finally do this, because I was afraid. Just like how Moses was afraid to go back to Egypt and go tell the Israelites to do all the stuff that God was sending him to do. I was also afraid. But I thank God because he gave me the courage to sit in front of this to sit in front of this camera and to talk. Anyway, if you like my vibe and if you enjoy talking about God and any of that stuff, then be sure to subscribe. I might honestly just make some more videos. There's a lot of different topics that I am very, very curious about, that I like talking about, that I'm like, once I start, it's hard to stop. And so let me know. There's a lot of things that the Lord has revealed to me, has taught me, and I would love to share those with you guys. Let's all grow together, let's edify ourselves, each other. Let's edify each other. There we go. But talk to me in the comments, share the video, I don't know, like the video, subscribe if you want to stick around, and thank you all so much for being here, and God bless all of you so much. Bye.